What did you totally misunderstand as a kid? When I was a child, we would go on a plane every time we'd visit Mexico, so I assumed Mexico was actually located in the sky. What? I used to believe that when you turned off the TV it would pause, was really upset when I would come back from dinner and my show would be over. That's so cute. I thought it was Pizza Hot, not Pizza Hut, until I was about 16 years old. I feel like such a douchebag laughing at these. Okay, I'll do one myself. When I was a really young boy, I didn't think we lived in England. I thought we lived in America because of all the American television I would watch, because I was a dumb butt. I would literally insist to my family, no, we live in America. We have dollars. I don't know why, I just didn't want to believe them. Oh, this one's gonna be fun. SX. I had a massive misunderstanding of SX that could have severely injured my adult life had it not been corrected. When I was younger, I was obsessed with biology and animals, so I knew how everything fit together. But those damn Hollywood movies messed up my perception of how humans actually did the horizontal limbo. In movies, couples get all hot and heavy. The screen fades to black and they wake up naked together. I guess I filled in the blanks with my 7-year-old brain and thought that after you got aroused, you just fell asleep naked together. And the penis just sort of autopiloted itself over to the vagina, threw up and snaked back. So when people said they were sleeping together, I took this literally. Made for an awkward encounter with my dad when I was 12, when I suggested he just go to sleep with pants on instead of getting a vasectomy. I thought that when you grew up, you got a special card that allowed you to go to the bank and have some money printed when you needed some at the ATM. And when I heard about guerrilla warfare on TV, I thought it meant that there was an army of really angry guerrillas in other countries starting wars. I used to think that kidnapping was kids taking naps. I was very surprised as a kid to find out babies weren't pooped out and women had more than one hole. That if you got shot anywhere on your body, you would automatically die. I thought you had to marry someone who was born on exactly the same day as you were. I thought that God punished bad people and rewarded good people. Boy, was I wrong. When my parents used to talk about how things were black and white when we were watching TV, I thought they were talking about the whole world was black and white and wanted to know how everything was colored to what it is now. I had pictures of people painting grass in my head and thought this was the way the world was now colored. That'd be really trippy. One day you're like walking along and you see some grass that's just freshly grown in and it's all black and white, and then some people in a black van come in with a paintbrush and bucket and like paint over it, and they look at you and they're like, shh. The concept of race. In the second grade, there was this little poetry contest, and the prompt was to write about the human race. I wrote about a bunch of people running. You know what? I think we'd all be better off if we just thought like this young man once did. I thought the actors actually died when they died in movies. Okay, no, I get that one. I totally get that. I mean, I remember being such a little dummy. I remember liking Star Wars, loving Obi-Wan Kenobi, and when my mom told me, oh, Obi-Wan Kenobi is the old man as well, you know, I'm like, no, he's not. Obi-Wan Kenobi's young and cool. I think really I didn't want to believe that he then turned into an old man and died. When 9/11 happened, I thought that the reason my morning cartoons weren't showing was because a plane had crashed into the building that made the cartoons. I thought the island Martha's Vineyard was owned by Martha Stewart. When I was about 9, Nickelodeon advertised a Nick Takes Over Your School contest. The commercial was filled with kids playing games, teachers getting slimed, etc. I was terrified that my school might win. Nick would take over for a full school year and that everyone would get held back a year since there didn't appear to be any learning going on in the commercials. The Civil War. Little kid version of me couldn't understand why America was fighting over forks, knives, and spoons. What do they mean by that? Like, does anyone have an explanation for that? Please do say. I thought the car somehow knew whether we would turn left or right. I was amazed by those turn signals. Why Walt Disney wrote his last name with a backwards G. It does totally look like it says Gisney. Or would it be Gisney? That $20 was a lot of money. I thought firemen burned down buildings. This was because when I was 5 or so, our neighbors sold or donated their house to the fire department to help trainees. So every day for like a week, the fire department showed up and lit the house on fire. I guess I somehow missed the part where they then put the fire out. So for years, I was scared of firemen and thought they set houses on fire. It didn't come out until sometime later my parents gave me the whole, if anything bad happens, call the fire department talk. When I was young, I knew people did things on purpose when they meant to do them. I thought the word was unpurpose, though, and so naturally the opposite of unpurpose was purpose. Once in first grade, I was sent to the principal and I kept insisting that I had committed said offense purposely. I thought Harry Potter was about bunny rabbits because Beatrix Potter wrote Peter Rabbit, so by the laws of word association, it was a series of books about little rabbits going on adventures with their friends. Ah, the word association game is a boy. Yes, I'm familiar with it. I remember not knowing that all the Final Fantasy games were set in different universes up to a point, except for when they decided that it was going to be a sequel, whatever, and I just assumed that any blonde main character that I saw was like Cloud with a different haircut because Cloud was the first protagonist I knew about in the franchise. I used to think people died on their birthday because the headstones I had seen didn't have months and days, just how many years. There were two boys in my pre-K class named Juan and Raj. I called them Juan and Garage instead. No wonder they never shared their toys with me. I thought there was a government agency called the Management for Your Protection because toilet seat cover dispensers always said, provided by the management for your protection. Whenever I was in the car with my parents while stuck in a traffic jam, I would wonder why the person first in line was going so slow. If only that jerk sped up, we would all move faster. Oh, I've been there. I was convinced that white dog poop in the backyard was dinosaur fossils, and I believed that my dad fought a guy in a boxing ring to win my mom. I was staying at my friend's house for the day once and had one of those annoying sneezes that just don't come out no matter how hard you try. I told my friend about it and he told me that if I had a sneeze stuck and I couldn't get it out that I could die. Of course this screwed with my 8-year-old brain pretty hard. Never did die. I didn't know the difference between the words grape and rake and used them interchangeably. I'm not talking about actual grapes. I don't know if that translates well because of the censors. At around 10, I started changing my new little brother's diapers. My little brother was circumcised, so whatever. Being a 10-year-old little girl, I don't see much penis. One day, I changed my little cousin's diaper, and I'm totally concerned with the way his junk looks, only to find out years later that he was uncircumcised. I used to think cancer was when your eyes got swirly things in them and your head spun around endlessly. No clue where that idea came from. When I was little, I would hear commercials advertising things for just $5.99. I used to think they meant $5.99. I would tell my parents that I wanted to buy it because I had enough money, and they were always pretty amused. Like everything. One thing I can remember is that I thought the USA national anthem went like, "By the dawn's early light," instead of "By the dawn's early light," as though dawn's-early was just another one of those many words I was familiar with as a kid. I thought it was maybe an adjective, like the orange glow of the morning sun cast a dawn's-early mood over the park. I also thought as a very young kid that when you were fired from your job, the company killed you. I also thought dawn's-early was a word because I thought that's how they said it in the American national anthem. Once again, only knowing the American national anthem because I watched so many TV episodes from American shows like The Simpsons. My parents used to take me on vacation when I was younger, and we'd leave out of Newark, New Jersey airport. When taking off, you can see Bayonne, New Jersey, and it's all docks and cranes and ships. One time, I pointed out the window to the cranes and asked my father what that place was. He said, Bayonne, and until I was about 18 years old, I thought no person lived there, only worked there. I imagined it was just cranes and ships and docks. There was an infomercial for some kind of griddle. All I remember was people tapping a frozen hamburger patty or frozen chicken breast on the griddle, and it swipes to the next shot of the food fully thawed and cooking. I thought you had to tap the food on the griddle to turn it on. Oh no, Sonny, that's just a fun editing trick someone decided to do. When I was a kid, I had a book. In this book, a character moves to a new town. To do this, the family has the house lifted up and placed on the back of a truck and driven to an empty piece of land in the new town. I was convinced that this is what happened whenever anyone moved. What really got me was that other than this, the book was really plain and normal. See Jim Run type stuff. It wasn't some kind of fantasy book or anything. We moved from a decent house with no yard to a trailer with a nicely sized yard. I was confused but thought it was just taking a long time for our house to arrive? No, we just had to actually live in the trailer. Biracial babies. I thought they would come out swirled. I don't know if this is controversial to say, but that sounds cool. Why my parents, when together, ever needed privacy. I thought I was supposed to sprout a second penis to match my two balls. I don't know if anyone remembers the kids' voices that answered the questions that Steve asked on Blue's Clues. Well, I thought those were just other kids that were watching the show at the same time, like there was some kind of microphone on the TV that would pick up my voice, and other kids watching would hear. So I used to whisper dirty words into my TV real quiet with my hands cupped around my mouth so my mom wouldn't hear, but the other kids watching would. I thought the lyrics to Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap by AC/DC were Dirty Deeds and the Thunder Chief. You know what, I'm pretty sure that I also grossly misheard that song and thought it said something else as well. I overheard my mom and dad talking about having to fire someone. I thought it meant they were going to set him on fire. The fact that they were upset and serious about it added to the illusion. I thought I must have two stomachs, one for food and one for drinks. How else would the food know to come out one hole and the drinks out another? When I was 5 in 1996, I thought for some reason that 1997 was 1,000 years in the future. So one day, my parents were watching local news, and there was a story on a golf course that would be completed in 97. And my thought was, you idiots, we'll all be long dead by then. Why does a golf course matter? When I was a kid and my mom didn't want me to watch something on TV, she would tell me that it was a scary show or scary movie. Well, I somehow got it in my head that the 2001 Planet of the Apes film was the single most terrifying movie ever made. I didn't see it until I was about 11 or 12 and then understood my mom's parenting techniques. I mean, good lord, I would not want to have to live through the ape-human war. God, that'd be terrifying, horrible. Why women's bodies didn't return to the former state immediately after giving birth. I told my mom she was still fat as we were leaving the hospital after she had my sister. Damn, kid. Harsh. My boyfriend told me this. Backstory. He was raised by a single mom and had 2 siblings. So my boyfriend overheard a conversation with his mom and babysitter. Apparently, they had a mutual friend who had a few kids. His mom sarcastically says, if she shakes hands with a guy, she'll get pregnant. Being a child, my boyfriend was obviously horrified. It took his mom a long while to figure out why he wouldn't shake hands when meeting people. My cousin had a chore chart of different categories like bedroom, bathroom, etc. The last category was labeled miscellaneous, and I always thought she had a neighbor that she did chores for and her name was Miss Alanius. Childbirth. I thought my dad would be able to have babies. They still have a good chuckle every time they tell that story. Marriage. I thought you had to find someone with the same last name to get married. It didn't help my parents didn't correct me on it. More so because they have different last names and were common law married until it was abolished a few years ago. I figured my parents were rebels. It's not the weirdest assumption kids have made about what constitutes getting married or how you get married, I guess. Autism. I always thought autism was like a license to drive cars. Autoism. I believe that you had to get diagnosed with autism by a doctor so that you were fit to drive. Makes sense, right? On television, informative autism commercials would constantly air and there would be a test crash dummy impacting a car. I thought that if you didn't have autism, you wouldn't be able to drive and you would get into an accident and turn into a crash test dummy. It all made sense a few years ago. I still don't have my license. I was 17 when I learned my favorite animal, the jackalope, wasn't real. I totally get that. It is mundane enough, it is plausible enough that it's like, yeah, that could be real. I think I might have been around the same age or older. I was 50-50 for a while though. I remember saying to my friend, hey, a jackalope's real? And he even looked at me and was like, I don't think they are they? And we both looked it up on the internet. And so, yeah, rabbit with antlers, it's plausible. I get it. I have a couple that I have my parents to blame for. They made me think that you can unlock the car by voice command and always got me to shout, unlock, as they would unlock it with their remote. Sadly, this went on for much longer than it should have. Second, when I would be at my mom's work, she would tell me to cover my eyes completely with my hands while she made photocopies of any documents because she said I would go blind. I think I was between 5 and 8 years old. They make fun of me from time to time, but I apparently had no reason to not trust my parents. Back when I was a little one, about 4 or 6 years old, I was forced to go to Sunday school. During our Sunday school sessions, we would all sit around a large lady talking about Jesus and all of his crazy antics. I wasn't much for listening, but knew I should probably get some key facts in case I'm asked what I learnt in Sunday school. This particular session, we were learning about Adam and Eve. To summarize the tale, there is an apple which caused bad things to happen when you eat it, and 2 naked people. Anyway, fast forward to the next weekend where our family is hosting a family get-together. South American families have a lot of relatives. As my mother is showing people people around our yard, she plucks out an apple. I smack it out of her hand and proceed to explain why she couldn't eat the apple. I had gotten the notion that somehow Adam and Eve became naked by eating the apple, and there was no way in hell I wanted to see my mother naked. Anyway, to this day, I can't eat apples in peace around my family without some sort of wisecrack. You should have paid better attention. It kind of reminds me, though, of how one time me and my friend got through a class where we were learning about the book Great Expectations, where we didn't actually read the book, but instead we referenced the episode of South Park where they did Great Expectations by subtracting and deducing what was too crude to be legitimate for the original work, and we actually got through the class really well. My dad was such a terrible highway driver that when we went on our annual vacation, he inevitably got into a car accident, usually a minor fender bender. I thought that every trip needed to include an accident and would pester him while on the road. When's the accident going to happen? When's it going to happen? What is wrong with you? I'm just picturing like the insurance agent, the police, every year on that day, on that annual trip, it's like, well, it's going to happen inevitably. This guy's going to call up and or whatever, or someone's going to call up about them, and the police are like, he's coming. I know he is. He's never let me down. Thought drinking and driving referred to any type of beverage, so when my uncle took a Coke for the road, I was shocked. I'd always heard that you could only survive a couple days without drinking water. Well, I stayed with my southern grandparents for likely 2 weeks. During that time, I drank nothing but iced tea. I was really worried I was going to die soon. I thought Albert Einstein created and gave life to a monster called Frank Einstein, and that's why he was considered a genius. I thought when you moved somewhere, you had to find a person in that town who needed to move to your town and then swap homes with them. When people said, I'm serving so my kids don't have to, I assumed that meant your kids were forced into the military if you didn't do it? Kids are literal. That'd be a terrifying prospect for certain. I didn't realize John Lennon was a different person than Lenin, the Soviet premier, as the names are pronounced almost the same and both had a huge impact in the 20th century. The world made a lot more sense once that one got cleared up. Before I ever had the talk, I inferred that babies were in fact made when two people kiss and their germs mix. I wasn't that far off. I didn't understand that TV shows were recorded, so when I saw the actors jumping in age from young to old and vice versa in the span of a week, I thought it was some type of wizardry. I'm surprised I haven't seen one saying, I thought the cartoons were like in or behind the TV and I just had to like catch them when they're off guard or something. I was raised very Catholic. For some reason, I thought a person's torso was called their body, so when I learned that when people die, their bodies stayed on earth while the rest of them went to heaven, I thought upon death a person's head, arms, and legs flew off and went into the sky. I also thought people had funerals for torsos. It was pretty metal. What a charming mind you must have. I mean that legitimately, by the way. I thought for a very long, almost too long time that an only child was pronounced lonely child because they had no siblings. When I was in pre-K, I was walking down the hall to recess, just chilling out with one of my friends when I saw one of those handprints made out of paper with a student's name on it. You know, the ones you have all your kids make and then you put them on your door. Anyways, the name on this one was Jesus. Hey, look, Jose, there's a kid named Jesus. It's Jesus. I've read my children's Bible 5 times. I think I know how to say Jesus. No, it's a Mexican name. You just say the J like H, like with my name. Jose does not have a J. I know how to spell my name, man. And I know how to spell Jesus. We fought about it for at least 5 minutes. I was not a fun kid. I thought everyone lived to the exact same age, like my brother taunted me for being 3 years younger than him, but in my mind it was no sweat because I was going to be alive for 3 more years after he died. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's also a thought that passed through my mind at one point or another. At least it sounds weirdly familiar to me. I misunderstood cardinal directions. I thought north was always in front of me. I misunderstood my family taking me to see the circus. I thought all the animals and people were there to see me. I misunderstood cashiers. I thought they had all that money and items. I misunderstood SX, despite learning about it from a book that was supposed to scientifically show it in the way kids understand. I thought a giant sperm climbs up the woman's leg as the couple holds hands. Certainly, if that were the way that it went, I don't think anyone would be interested in doing the deed. People just said, he died for your sins, over and over, and never explained what that meant, as if it was obvious. It's not. But I wasn't born yet. He died for your sins. As punishment for my sins? Or he died for your sins? For me or for the sins? He died for your sins. So does that mean it's okay to sin? He died for your sins. So am I forgiven, or he died for your sins? Please explain that phrase, Mom. Until Jesus died, sins could not be forgiven. Because of the ritual sacrifice, sins can now be forgiven. This may or may not apply to people who sinned before his death. Why didn't God just say, okay, I forgive sins now? Jesus died! Sorry! When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories. And if you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Linked in the description below.